Hello, hello to another short story. Today I have something quite special for you. Something I haven't done yet, something I'd been thinking about doing for a quite long time, and something I feel it's finally time to do. Before I took a short trip to Heidelberg in Germany to meet some dear friends and to follow in Mark Twain's footsteps and once again grapple with the awful German language, I faced two of my biggest end bosses in Munich, Germany. Number one, I gave my first real singing performance in front of a live audience, and a week earlier, narrated one of my own short stories at an open reading. The feedback encouraged me to narrate this very story here on my channel as well. Many thanks to Lisa from the Munich Readery for this fantastic event and the opportunity to present my story to an audience, and also big thanks to Kat, who told me about this event and encouraged me to take part. I wrote the story in its rough form a few years ago and completely reworked it specifically for the open reading, so while this isn't really a world premiere, it is in a sense though, since I now actually present this story to the whole world. And if you want to hear more of my own original stories, let me know. If you don't want to hear any, then don't tell me, right? With all that having said, and without further ado, here is The Neighbour, written by yours truly. Today, one of those things happened. Events. One of those events that seemed to happen just like that. Apparently without reason. Nevertheless, a result of countless other things. Events. A result of a seemingly random and supposedly loose sequence of little insignificant incidents, each of them subtle, almost unrecognizable, however unstoppable, just as millions and millions of tons of frozen water crystallized in the ice of a glacier head towards a definite endpoint. The big word fate comes to mind, and yes, today was one of those days on which the vague term fate gained a literal concreteness. But how would I have been able to guess that this day was meant to become the end point of one of those long chains of events, that this day was meant to become the fulfillment of not only my fate. It was Saturday afternoon. I had just put up a pot of tea when it knocked on my door. Good afternoon. My name is John Taylor. I'm the new neighbor from 134. Smith, I answered, baffled as I was. Michael Smith? The tall young man in the knight's armor smiled brightly behind the raised visor of his helmet. I was perplexed, but welcomed him in and asked if he would join me for a cup of tea and some biscuits or cake. I tried my best not to let on how curious I was. But how could I not have been? The young man was delighted. He entered, removed his helmet in a most intricate way, put it on the hat stand, and made himself comfortable on the sofa. As comfortable as one can get in an iron armor of probably more than 100 pounds. John Taylor was reserved, yet pleasant and a very sophisticated conversation partner. He had moved in 2 weeks ago but hadn't met his neighbors yet, and so decided to introduce himself. "My door," he said, with a light chuckle, "looked like the most welcome one. That's why he started here." "Actually," he laughed, "I have no idea why I did, no real reason. I simply went past the door and I knocked." We chatted for more than an hour about this and that, mostly trivial things, and I carefully avoided staring too peculiarly at his big sword leaning against the sofa and the forged iron gloves with which he skillfully handled the porcelain cup and the pastry fork. He didn't seem to notice my stealthy peeks, and also didn't seem to want to explain his very, unconventional clothing. "What did you say your profession was, Mr. Taylor?" I eventually asked. "My profession? I'm a hero," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He nodded, smiled, and took another sip of tea. I have to admit that while it somehow made sense, it still surprised me. "Oh my, this must be a very, fascinating job." "Unusual," I said. "Well, you get around a lot, seeing the world. I love being outdoors in the fresh air, and I meet a lot of interesting people," was his reply, while shoving another piece of cake into his mouth. "Oh, I bet," I said. "Probably very dangerous as well, all this princess-saving and sword-fighting stuff, going to war, such things. It sounds like a lifestyle of its own," I speculated. "It's all about the attitude." The young man's eyes started to brighten. "It is so much more than a profession. It is a calling. Fate, you understand? Do you believe in fate?" There it was. This ominous word, fate. But what is fate, really? Predestination, or just an excuse for our inability to face the inevitable? "You know what, Mr. Taylor, what you call fate, isn't it merely a symptom? A symptom of life, I mean," I said after a moment of silent musing. The young man looked puzzled. I tried to explain. "While symptoms can be relieved, some even made to disappear, isn't it really about the underlying cause that we so carefully avoid, like with a disease? Just because we know the symptoms doesn't mean that we know the cause of the disease. And quite frankly, often we don't even want to know. We hide. We cower away. And we only care about the symptoms." "Only about the symptoms?" My guest looked up, an expression of bewilderment in his eyes, and with raised confusion he became visibly nervous. "Things happen, Mr. Taylor. Sometimes just like that, for no apparent reason. We knock on doors because we feel like it. Nothing more to it. No reason. As I see it, our duty in life, our calling, if you will, is to not only find the reason, the underlying cause, but actually do something about it." A flash of understanding flared up in the young man's eyes. "Would you be so kind as to answer one question, Mr. Smith? What is your profession?" he asked, reaching for his sword. Just as life, with all its twists and turns, finally ends in death, there are days on which fate crystallizes. Well, Mr. Taylor, I said, slowly spreading my wings, I am a dragon.